While we get situated here, I'm honored to introduce our first panel of FiReStarters. And for many of you who've returned, you know what our FiReStarters are, but for those of you who have not been here yet, these are the companies that we have found through our global SNS membership that we believe are world-changing businesses. These are companies that are often very new technology companies from all over the world, whether it's in healthcare, alternative energy, new technologies that are worth showing to all of our members through our global press to the world. These are companies that we think that our members should all know about. So I'm going to leave this in the hands of Stephen Evans to start our first FiReStarter panel.
Thank you very much. I'm going to say virtually nothing today. A bunch of very bright people and very bright companies, and basically I'm going to get them to explain why you should know about them and what they want their futures to be. So at the far end, Eric Greenberg, founder and chairman and CEO of Beautifull, double L. James Fallon, then moving this way. James Fallon, then Matthew Klipstein of NeuroRepair. Pettersen, Impact Radius. Sailesh Chutani of Mobisante. Bobby Purkait of NivaSonix. Brad Wurtz, to my right, of PowerAssure. Eric, first of all, tell us why we should know about your company and what you want your company to do and what it is doing.
Sure. Beautifull. At Beautifull, we make tasty, healthy, convenient prepared food that's fresh, natural, and whole. We believe that food matters, and we have a chronic disease crisis, an obesity crisis in this country that we believe is caused by fake food. And so we've set up a revolutionary new retail concept where we have prepared fresh food that tastes great, where you can eat in, take out, stock up, or have it delivered. And so what we want to make it is easy for people to eat well, so they can come in, grab food for the day, for the week, meals, portions, components of that, eat in, take some home or whatever, but it's really healthy for you. We make what you want to eat, what you should eat, into what you want to eat. But really,
let me stop you then. Are you making it for supermarkets in trays, or what does it look like? How are you going to make me eat broccoli?
Well, I can't make you eat broccoli, but I can tell you, if you don't eat any vegetables, you're probably going to get pretty sick at some stage in your life. You need vitamins.
But explain how it gets to me and how I will find it.
Well, it's kind of like any other place you go eat. You know, you make an order, you ask for it, and they give it to you.
Okay.
You know, it's a deli-style thing. So imagine going in a Whole Foods deli without any white flour, butter, processed sugar, processed oils, steroids, hormones, anything like that. The food's clean. Imagine being able to go in a place like that where the food was invented by Michelin-starred chefs that you knew was healthy for you and tasted great, and you can just go in there and enjoy a meal or take the food home and stock it up for your family. And for families on the go and people on the go and busy, this is a great option. What we have to do in this country is we have to make healthy food fast, because that's what America is doing. It's eating at fast casual and fast food restaurants. So we have to have the antidote for the poison that's served by the big fast food companies with all their steroids, hormones, artificial flavors, colors, chemicals, preservatives, excitotoxins, and everything else. It's causing cancer, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease.
How are you going to get slow food fast at a price that fast food manages to get?
Come see our store and our stores in Northern California and San Francisco, and you'll see it. For instance, our most expensive meal is about $13, and it's a filet mignon with 2 sides for $13. I mean, that's cheaper than Sizzler. And by the way, you're getting meat that has no steroids or hormones and was sustainably raised and humanely slaughtered. And you're getting fresh vegetables that are organic and local. It's possible to do this. It's just efficiency of operations and understanding how to operate a business.
And the branding of it, which I imagine is very important in this market?
Yes.
What's the brand look like? I mean, how you... I can imagine Whole Foods. I know that brand.
Yeah.
What's your brand like?
Well, our logo is a spoon, which is an exclamation mark, and it means food is important. And there's lots of different ways to manifest it. We spent actually north of $1 million in our branding with the premier branding firm in the world, Beautifull. And because what we want to do is have a consumer brand that is easily recognizable, and really, people can relate to in turning desire into virtue, and something that is easily recognizable and makes it appealing to eat at a place that's healthy. Because the one thing about this is that people think that eating healthy, well, it's not going to taste good, I'm not going to enjoy it. Well, that's not true. I mean, the best chefs in the world and the best meals in the world are made from fresh, real ingredients that are made, in a proper way. And the reason why I did this is at one time I was about 280 pounds, and I was on the verge of getting diabetes. I was pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure and everything else. I reversed all of it without drugs and medications, based on lifestyle and diet. And what I couldn't find was a place that sold the food that I wanted to eat or needed to eat. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to build it, because I'm not the only guy out there with the issue. There's lots of people with the issue. And what we have to do is we have to make healthy food pervasive and available to lots of people, and make it so that they can eat that way, if they choose to.
You've got to make them want to. Thank you very much indeed. And
Thank you.
I do like broccoli, actually.
You do? Your mother would be proud.
Thank you very much. NeuroRepair is a very, very interesting company. Matthew Klipstein, the nearest guy to me, is the originator of it, for a reason that he had a very bad accident 8 years ago?
Almost 10.
Almost 10. And James is the scientific brains behind it. So first of all, I'm going to ask you, Matthew.
James is the brains behind it. I'm just the pretty face.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, Matthew, first of all, why it's so important to you.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Actually,
Jim.
and the basic question,
Yes,
what is it?
I know there's no time to squander here, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least start by thanking Mark Anderson for his uncommon kindness and generosity, and the rest of his team, Sharon, Sally, and Shane, for their patience and tolerance in working with me, which is not always easy, and they've been great.
Okay.
So, and now, if you don't mind, I'll rephrase your question so that I can ask my own question and then answer it, which is what I'm better at.
That's absolutely fine.
So I think the question is, what is NeuroRepair? What does it do, and why should you care? NeuroRepair is, as Steve has already stated, a company that I founded after I had suffered a neurological injury in a sports accident. Absent that, I'm sure I never would have even thought of the idea of neurological injury, and it never would have mattered to me. After a very long stay in the hospital, I started to do some research looking for someone who was doing something in the nature of neurological repair. This was after months of hearing one doctor after another telling me, in virtually these exact words, brain injuries never heal, there is no treatment, you will never recover. It is a bedrock precept of medical science that once you lose neurons, that's it, you're done. They're never replaced, they never heal. You're just not going to get better. And having done some research, looking all over the world for someone doing something, I discovered Jim, who was geographically convenient to me, I being in San Diego, he in Irvine. And also, he was one of just a handful of people working on this very important question anywhere in the world. The reason for that is, of course, if you go to medical school or you get your PhD in neuroscience and your Nobel laureate professor is telling you over and over, brain injuries never heal. There's no such thing as neurogenesis. Once you lose neurons, they're gone forever. They never heal, they never repair. There's nothing to be done about it. So don't bother. Don't even bother working on this. And virtually nobody does. But Jim did. He's stubborn that way.
I'm watching the clock here, so I'm going to turn to Jim now on your excellent cue and ask Jim where the science now stands. I should say that Matthew, 8 weeks earlier, before this accident, had sold his company. A chap purporting to be Bill Gates phoned him up and said, I'm Bill Gates, I want to buy your company. And Matthew assumed he wasn't Bill Gates, but he was Bill Gates.
I brilliantly responded,
and he did
who
buy
is
the
this
company.
really and what do you want?
It was Bill Gates, and he bought the company, and that money is what's funding this research, which is very exciting research, and Jim will tell you why.
I had thought when Matthew contacted me, it was because of the quality of my work and that he had heard that I was willing to go against some of the doctrines of neuroscience and some previous work with Parkinson's disease. And now I found out he just called me because I looked the most like Mark Anderson. And, if I
were you here, both of you should sue.
And this will be a little bit of death by PowerPoint. I have to show it because it's anatomy and it's hard to explain. It's easier to just look at. So we look at the first slide. And here are a couple of the doctrines, as Matthew so well said. First of all, that brain damage is irreversible. And part of this is that the idea that there are very few stem cells in the adult brain. And the ones that are there were always thought to be simply there to cause scar tissue. That is, it was glial cells that would be created and would cause scar tissue. And in fact, these stem cells that were in the brain are probably one of the main reasons why things like embryonic stem cell transplants, engineered cell transplants, which we've done, do not work, because these come in and there's a reaction set up against these cells and the scar tissue forms. And so we had started to work with growth factors. As a point, our lab was the first to discover a growth factor in the mammalian brain. That was back in 1984. Now, with all these years going by, you figure, haven't you done anything yet? You know, it's kind of a long way to go. We really had no idea because nobody else was doing this, and it took us a while to then look at a bunch of other growth factors. And one of them was the sister compound to this epidermal growth factor called transforming growth factor alpha, and we had started to look at it using the doctrines of the day back in the, the 80s and 90s too, which is you had to do cell transplants. We had to make a cocktail with these different growth factors. And then, as it turns out, most of the stuff by serendipity, a student made two errors. Forgot to add the cells, just put in the growth factor, and did it in the wrong place at the wrong time, and voila, instead of seeing a couple of new cells, we saw hundreds of thousands to millions of new cells, which we fell off our chair. That was doing Parkinson's research, our main interest. Now, then Matthew called me after our study had gone from NIH to Congress, to the stem cell report to Congress, saying, oh, maybe adult stem cells, that is endogenous adult stem cells, might be able to be mobilized in great numbers and directed toward an injury if you do it right, if you put it in the right place, the right time, and all of that. So he called me up and I said the same thing the doctor said. I said, this is impossible. I can't take the young students and postdocs in my lab and have them risk their careers for several years going after something we know doesn't work. He convinced me of it. I don't know how. And I
said I had some money. That was it.
Well, there were a couple of bucks there. Well, that doesn't hurt, Sure force of character.
It was naive on my part, but it worked.
And so anyway, yeah, he was willing to fund it, and we went ahead, and so here's what we found. So if you look at the next slide, I only have 3 slides. The second one, at the top left, you see a human stroke. And this is the most common stroke, and in fact, it's from the artery that's called the artery of stroke, and it's in the basal ganglia and partially a cortex. We take animal models of different diseases. In this case, we do a stroke model in rodents, and that's at the top right. And it's the same sort of picture here, stained with a stain that shows new cells being made over in the top right, and they're migrating. So there's millions of new cells, and they migrate right to where the injury is and also the growth factor is. You have to have 2 together. If you do a Venn diagram, it has to be overlapped, and it has to be injury. Otherwise, you get this temporary effect, and it goes away. It's a key deal. And so, and the bottom 2 pictures show as if you're sitting in the ventricle, because the adult stem cells are lining the ventricle. So if you're sitting in the fluid of the ventricle, those bottom 2 pictures are the actual cells, stem cells dividing. So that red one there at the surface is a stem cell, and at the right, it's starting to divide, and then it migrates. So in the last slide, what we have here is we did it a couple of ways. When we tried doing this, first of all, next slide, we tried, and this is an animation, and this shows that area of the stroke, in the common area of the stroke. You see that cell lit up because it died. And the idea is you have this circuitry in the brain whereby what you're thinking, your will, coming from cortex, directs this basal ganglia where these automated motor and sensory programs are, and then that forms loops, and that tells your body what to do. In the case of stroke, that's gone, so you know what you want to do, but you can't do it. And the idea is you have to restructure the brain. And so one way to do this is you try to do all this engineering of cells. The other thing is just to take the latent potential of the brain with a natural growth factor, TGF-alpha, which is a native growth factor, and you put it in there, and voila, as you can see on the right there, those stem cells start to divide like crazy, and they migrate right to where this 5-alarm fire is. And so we've done this in a couple of models, and it worked, and none of the people in our lab could believe it. And this led to a 98% improvement of the behavior.
So, because I'm watching the clock here, where you now are is it's worked on rats
Right.
and may work on humans, and you are talking to the Parkinson's Society in Britain about collaboration on a further trial. Am I right, Matthew?
That's correct. We've just had some preliminary conversations, by the way, set up by Mark Anderson, with Parkinson's UK. I got an email this morning from the person who's been helping us with them, saying that the Stroke Association of the UK is also interested in participating along with us. So this could be a perfect fit. Those two organizations are very keen to have some sort of clinical trial. Because everyone, of course, is very anxious to make some progress on these two really terrible maladies, Parkinson's and stroke. They have the facilities and they have the money. They don't have the IP. We have the IP. We don't have the facilities or the money.
Right.
So it's a very nice marriage if we can make it work.
Absolutely. Good.
Can I make one more point?
You can.
The key here is this is not an acute stroke. This is an old stroke. That's what really is remarkable, that this is a stroke that's equivalent to a 1 to 2 year old stroke in a human. It's not acute stroke. That's what really blew us away.
Okay.
So anyway.
Good. Thank you both very much. Per.
Yeah.
Tell me about your company and, well, don't tell me.
Okay.
These are the important people. Tell them about your company and where it's going.
Yeah, we're changing traditional media by enabling performance-based pricing arrangements of media. So on the internet, this concept, I wouldn't say we invented it at my last company, but we certainly have changed the way media is sold on the internet. Today, 60% of all advertising on the internet is sold on a performance basis, meaning the advertiser pays for a result, not for an upfront payment for X amount of audience or impressions. So we're enabling that same pricing model, we call it performance-based pricing models, in all media, TV, radio, print, out-of-home, where an advertiser, instead of paying upfront, pays for the desired result they're seeking. So if they want to call into their call center, they're paying on a per call basis. If they want to sell concluded orders in their call center, they share the profit of their call center operation with the media company. Those are some examples. So the platform itself is a marketplace which connects all the media companies. We load in all the media companies on one side of the model and then all the advertisers, and they can meet and structure these deals in our system. So we act as the clearinghouse for the funds, the negotiation platform for structuring these type of arrangements. We track all the results using unique telephone numbers that are assigned to each media company, unique coupon codes that can be assigned to media company, or unique domain names that are assigned to media companies. An example of how that might work, let's say Domino's does a deal with K-Rock in Los Angeles. K-Rock, the DJ, it's a beautiful day here in Santa Barbara, no, in Los Angeles. Get some pizza, go to Domino's.com and enter K-Rock and get 25% off your order. Consumer responds to that offer, goes to Domino's, enter K-Rock at checkout. K-Rock gets paid, let's say $5. The consumer gets a cheaper pizza, yeah.
So it's forgive me, I don't understand. It's a deal whereby...
Between K-Rock and Domino's in that scenario.
Right.
And K-Rock agrees to promote Domino's on a performance basis and get paid $5 per order to generate.
So the DJ goes on the air, says, Domino's, they got great pizzas, you know.
Yeah.
And the DJ gets paid by how many pizzas Domino's sells.
Yeah, exactly. Using that
How do you
code.
make your money out of that?
Our business model is a transaction-based business model where we take between 0.5% and 10% of the money that flows through our clearinghouse. So my last company, Commission Junction, on these type of arrangements, they do some between 1 billion to 1.5 billion a year in revenue that's going through their clearinghouse based on a similar arrangement. And we aim to blow it out of the water, obviously attacking a way dramatically larger market, which is the traditional media, in a time where these type of solutions is very well timed for the problems that traditional advertising models are seeing right now.
Okay. Sailesh.
Yeah, thank you. I think this audience probably is well aware that lack of access to affordable and high-quality healthcare is a global problem, including in countries like the United States. And one of the ways to address that is to have the ability to diagnose what's wrong with someone close to where they live and work and do it very inexpensively. And that's the problem Mobisante is trying to address. We want to build point-of-care diagnostic systems that are so cheap that any healthcare worker in the world can afford it. And they're so portable that you can literally carry in your pocket and easy to use, so you don't need years of training. And the first product we have done, and you'll see on the slide as well, some of the live images taken with that product, is an ultrasound system. And this is a complete ultrasound imaging system. Those of you who have kids are probably familiar with the maternal visits you do, and you do ultrasound to see if the baby is doing fine, the mother is doing fine. Ultrasound is actually a very powerful diagnostic technique. You can do a lot more with ultrasound. You can screen for aneurysms. As you get older, aneurysm is a big issue, and if they burst, they are nearly almost always fatal if you're not in a hospital. They can be used to screen for carpal tunnel syndrome. There's a whole class of things, because essentially you're looking into the body, you're looking into the soft tissue. The problem with ultrasound today is these systems are very expensive. They cost tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. They typically have a room assigned to them because it's a big cart-based system. So you have to take the people to the machines rather than the other way around. And it takes years of training for someone to be able to use and interpret the images. And we want to change all of that by literally having something like this. And I think the clever thing, our innovation, if you will, is we are really building on top of something that is as powerful as a computer used to be. So we are completely based on a cell phone. All our innovation is in the software. And cell phones are very attractive for us because there are billions of dollars going into making these things even more powerful and more attractive.
So how can you turn a big room with a big machine that costs big money into that without losing something?
We can't obviously do everything that a $250,000 machine does. So what we are trying to focus on is, are there common procedures for which our technology is good enough? And there are. I think there are 70 to 80% of things that are done commonly. An example would be when somebody's pregnant, they go for the first 9-week exam at the OB's office. They look for 2 or 3 things. They want to confirm pregnancy, and you can do that. And you can see the fetal image on the screen right there. You want to check viability, so you want to see if the heart is beating. You can do that as well. And you want to see if the baby is well placed. Is the fetus in the right position? So we can do those things. Now, if you want to make very precise measurements to see if somebody has Down syndrome, we can't do that. But what this allows us to do is quickly tell if you need to take someone for more detailed exam. So it's a good triage, quick look method that you can take in the field.
Literally in the field as well, in
Yes.
poor countries.
Absolutely. And we have done a lot of business modeling. We think at scale, an uninterpreted ultrasound exam with our system can be done for less than $1 an exam. And that means now there's no barrier really to do mass screenings in Africa and Asia to figure out high-risk pregnancies and make sure they can be brought to the right place for delivery.
Huge benefits, very impressive, but I'm going to ask you the question you don't want me to ask, which is, that's going to be used by poor people in poor countries to work out, is it a boy, is it a girl? If it's a girl, I don't want it.
So this is a very important issue, and we are very sensitive to that. In India and China, that is a big problem. The fact of the matter is ultrasound is available today, and it is regulated. So we'll work with the right people there to make sure it's used properly. But the positive of this is you take the cost down. So the number of women who die every year because of high-risk pregnancies is huge. So the impact is quite positive. And I think it'll outweigh, hopefully, the other issues. But we are being very respectful and careful of how to do this.
Bobby.
Our company's name is NivaSonix. As you probably have seen some of the video animation going outside. The company stands for non-invasive ultrasound technology that we have developed to treat some excess fat or some small flab or any wrinkle. As you know probably, or you can find in the statistics, that there are about 2/3 of the US population and the world population probably will have some excess fat by 2015. So this is a huge increase of the body excess weight and a serious problem. So we have come up with an innovative product that you can use in a non-invasive, no surgery procedure and can remove fat in an office-based setting at a very simple and effective way. That's really our current invention that we are trying to study for the next phase of clinical.
And where do you now stand and what is about to happen, do you hope?
We hope, the United States, the clinical study is regulated by the FDA. So that's kind of hard to predict exactly when and how that should be done. However, our primary goal is to launch this product in the international, whereby the regulatory hazards, or rather the overall hurdles, is not as great as the United States. So we'll be probably releasing product first in the international market, develop some more data, come back to the United States and do that.
What do you mean by the international market?
All over the world, including Brazil, South America, Europe, Australia, Canada, Asian market.
And what's your pitch going to be? What's the slogan? I mean, I don't mean literally what will the slogan be, but what if, in one line, what's the pitch?
The pitch is that you can reduce your fat, maintain a healthy lifestyle, good body fat composition by non-invasive, non-surgical procedure.
If you can remove people's fat at no cost, you're going to make a fortune.
We hope so.
How can you convince me that it's not snake oil?
Because the study, this is why we're doing the study. We are not saying, trust me, believe me. We have data to prove that. Our primary goal is to develop science first, understand the physics and biology of the system, and then convince the people it does work.
Right.
Thanks. I think after Tuesday, it was apparent to me why our company, PowerAssure, was selected to be a FiReStarter company, in seeing the enormity of the problem facing us. So what we are tackling is energy efficiency. We've focused on a particular aspect of that, which is data centers. So why is that interesting? Everyone here in the room makes use of data centers all day during your life and your business and your home life. But what you probably don't know is that data centers consume about 3% of the total energy capacity of the US today, and it's growing at about 20% a year. So within 4 years, it'll be 6%, and by 2020, we'll be over 10%. So you can imagine how much power that is, and you extend it on a global basis, and what's happening in India and China, that this scale of growth is not sustainable. So the problem with data centers is they're also terribly inefficient. Data centers are built to meet peak demand. So if I'm into it, I build my data center to meet the demand of April 14th close to midnight, because if I can't meet that demand, then my customers aren't happy. Problem is the rest of the year, or all during the time, those systems are turned on. Data centers are commissioned, all the servers, all the equipment is turned on and is never turned off. And that would be fine if their use varied with load, but it doesn't. And the average utilization of a data center in the US today is 8 to 10%. So essentially 90% of the power is being wasted. So we have developed a software system that can essentially double the efficiency and half the power consumption of data centers without impacting their service level agreements, which is the key thing.
and they'd be interested, one, because it's a good thing to do, but two, because it'll save them money.
Saves a lot of money, so you can cut company's bill in half. Obviously, businesses today have, in environmental side, has had a black eye. Everybody is looking to improve their image. The chief sustainability officer is becoming more and more Fortune 500 position. So becoming a green and having a green strategy has become very important. But bottom line is that it saves money. The reason this works is essentially what we're doing is we're tying user demand directly to the use of the assets in a data center. So we're tracking demand on a real-time basis. And as demand increases, we bring systems online to meet that demand. As demand decreases, we take those systems and remove them from the pool, put them into a low power consumption mode so that they're consuming much less power, and wait until demand comes up. Constantly, we're also at the same time measuring the latency and service level agreements to make sure that their customers are happy. And as we go into the future, you think about how does it integrate with the smart grid. Another interesting thing about data centers is that the compute power can be moved around without impacting the user in most applications. Obviously, in trading applications, the latency has to be very, very short. But unlike lights, for example, or if I turn on a light here, it won't help someone in New York who's sitting in the dark. If I bring on a data center here, I can satisfy customers in New York. So what this means is that the compute power can be moved around wherever there either is excess electricity or where electricity is cheapest. This is sometimes referred to the fall of the moon strategy, where a company with a large number of data centers could move their compute power regularly to make use of excess electricity wherever it is, and integrate with the smart grid as part of that. Because given the size of data centers today, which are now 20, 30, 50, even 60 megawatts, the latest Microsoft plant, 60 megawatts, and will grow up to 100 megawatts, clearly you can't take that kind of load off the grid without telling somebody, or bringing that amount on the load, on the grid without telling somebody. So this interaction with the utility provider is a key aspect. So we have received a Department of Energy grant for $5 million to do just that, is further this technology, this use within federal data centers and commercial, and to take this to the next step, which is to integrate it into the smart grid going forward.
Great. Thank you very much. We've got 2 minutes and 7 seconds left. I've just noticed that, hold on, that there is a theme amongst some of you, and that is a medical theme, and that is gaps in the market with medicine, and maybe a discontent about the way in which we're being served by medicine. So I'm going to ask Matthew to say very briefly why you think that might be and whether I'm right. Why are so many companies now coming to try to fill gaps in medicine? Why are we discontented with the medicine we get? You have 1 minute and 35 seconds to say that.
Well, I won't take the whole minute and 35 seconds. But I think those are two different questions. Why is there the gap, and why is it now starting to be filled? I think it's now starting to be filled because we can, and that's new. In our particular case, Jim and I have tried to explain that, and I really can't overstress, I can't overstate how earth-shattering this is in the world of medicine and neuroscience, that we have proven neurogenesis exists. And as Jim stated, that furthermore, we're not limited to acute injury. We can do something about what a professional would call a chronic injury and what I as a layman would call an old stabilized injury. That is gigantic news. We've also given you the obligatory caveat, which is that we've proven this so far in rats. We haven't done primates, we haven't done humans. If you strip away the caveats and you strip away the cautionary statements and try to get down to the bottom line of it, okay, what is it? And I would say it's this. The takeaway from NeuroRepair, I hope, is I expect to see all of you at FiRe next year without the cane, without the limp, and with a left hand that works. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen. It's just not possible to know at this point if that's going to work. What I do know for sure, because we have rock solid scientific proof, is that it's possible. And that in itself is big news. It is possible. And I know that a year ago it wasn't.
Right, good.
I think that's a big deal.
Thank you very much. He will also tell you, that he's only doing it for himself. It's not true. It's not true. Thank you very much.